Welcome back to Dat Build. Today I'm working towards a modification for my Beetle. If you're new to the channel and would like to catch up, please do watch the Beetle's introduction video. There is also individual videos of each day I've actually done work on this car. Within my channel there are other playlists including interests, other builds and other people's builds. If you'd like to consider subscribing, I do appreciate it. So, what am I doing today? No, seriously. As you can see, I have a bit of an arrangement going on. I have a lovely black, slightly used, but still in good order, Sparco Sprint bucket seat here. And of course the lovely little support, which I think needs to be repadded. It's slightly deflated. Apart from that, I have a seat rail, a runner, and the handles, and then the mounts. Now the funny thing is that I actually bought the seat and the mounts combined with the little cushion here at a decent price. These are actually out of a Mk4 Mazda, and I don't need them, but I can use them. And the fact is that these actually have adjustable holes all through the sides and moving back and forth and all that sort of thing. Now I have the rails obviously, which I'm going to use, but these ones allow me to actually have it forward and backwards accordingly. This will actually give me my articulation. So if I want the seat leaning back a little bit, or if I do want it propped up a little bit higher, this will allow me to do that. I can't actually modify the base any further beyond that. These are still proper solid thick steel mounts and everything, so I'm not packing it out with washers and all that sort of thing. These are actually designed initially as mounts to be bolted onto the car, and then of course you raise the seat up. In this case, I'll be putting this on, putting the rails alongside, then getting these plates, which I'll have to modify, basically cutting off the section here, which is where they'd normally mount onto the body of the Mk4, drilling some holes to actually go through the base into this section, and then bolting the seat onto this. This is going to require a fair bit of measuring. So number one is I'll basically be modifying these. I can do that at the end really, but it doesn't really make a difference. Modify these, but place these on the actual seat first so I get a point of reference. Secondary to that then is to measure everything up on the base. The base is already preset in that it's got the holes here, so more or less bolt that holds that all in place. And then the seat runners themselves will then mount hopefully in the right position, because there is a bit of movement here. I can actually move them forward and across with a bit of a gap. I'm hoping that when I actually mount these, they'll be in the far outside point. I don't know why I was going to say perspective, but anyway, far outside point, so that the bolts that I've actually got here, the existing holes that are part of it, this one at the back that goes through, I want to actually go through that and this and the base, so it holds it all really nice and firm. And then there's a hole at the front, which again, straight through into that. So beyond that, obviously I have a ton of lovely nuts, bolts, washers, screws in order to put this whole thing together. So yeah, it's basically just going to be a massive measuring and drilling and grinding, and finally a seat, which in the future will be going back inside the bug. These holes here actually line up reasonably well with the metal, so I think that's what I'm going to go for. I can go in a bit more obviously, but I think I'll go for that. So I'm going to cut those bits off. Maybe I'll hammer them out first. I'm sure I'll be grinding off a portion of this metal. I don't think I'll be using all of it. So now we have these sorted. They will need to be ground down later and just prepped and painted, because yeah, the paint is flaking off. It was also kind of rusty around the edges, just where paint has previously come off anyway. So a little bit of a touch up. Once everything's done, I'll just disassemble and clean up, and that'll be that. So I think now I need to bolt these on to the seat. One of the side holes here is a little larger because I don't know how, or at least this is the story I got from the buyer. no, I'm the buyer, the seller, is that the person he bought it from, when they did the mounts, they more or less seemingly had them the wrong way around. This is the only thing I can think of, because more or less this one of these holes here, actually it's also enlarged on that side too. I don't know if I can understand the story now. Apparently that's where he had it drilled for the seatbelt clip. I don't even understand how that could be, but whatever. Anyway, so done. The base is a little dirty. Unfortunately, my shed floor here isn't immaculate, so I've got grass and crap all through it. I'll vacuum that all up later. Okay, so they're now mounted and as straight as they could possibly be. Next thing is, I think if I mock up them, so I'll move this to the front. I'll get the base happening. Where's the base? Here we go. The base. And, oh, that's a lovely sound. So these two parts here will bolt together like so, and I have some nuts and bolts. Okay, so what's going on here is that these rails are going to be bolted onto the top of this. So when I actually want to assemble everything, I've got to go through these holes. I think we need to drill some other holes. So if we go for those front holes there like that, what I'll do first then is bolt the front of these together. That way I can line up the new holes I need to drill in the seat rails, which then marries up to that mount point which is for the car, and that's about the same either side. That's actually perfect. So yeah, that'll be the first point of action, is to bolt this part onto the runners. This might be interesting to try and get a socket bit down in there. It's a size 13 as well. Yeah, that's what I thought. This just got more interesting. Okay. It's almost like they need to be welded in there. It'd be much easier, wouldn't it? I can't, because I can't weld the back ones in. Need to be able to, okay, if I vice grip them, that's probably the easiest way of doing it. There we go. How am I going to do this? I've got to do this on, after I just hang it over. So this is the front, yes, it's the front. Hang on. Yeah, this goes on top, that's right. So that goes like that. That. And that one comes like that. So washer, nut. Hopefully this is a long enough reach. Long enough. Got to try and nick them all up later somehow. It's going to be entertaining. So that's, yep, that's good. So now this one, same sort of deal. Go. That's all nice and tight. Just need to measure these holes out now, to make sure they're actually flush. So that's actually center, and then drill them, and then that way I can put these bolts. Yep, that's right. Need a platform. Okay. Yeah, it is not by much, but it is slightly off. which kind of does complicate, oh, not really. Because when I push these out anyway, it'll line these holes up. Because the whole thing's going across. I'm going through this, through that. Oh, problem. How am I supposed to do these up when I can't fit a socket through these? Okay. That's a problem. I'm gonna have to think this through. So I think after a fair bit of consideration, I've figured out the best way of doing this. And it still does make it a bit of fun trying to do it, but it will work. Right, so let's kind of go over things a bit here. What I've done is taken the C-rails and flipped them upside down. Now, weirdly enough, I can't find definitive answers online, but I'm seeing some that are like this, where it's got the thin tube in the inside, the thicker tube in the outside. To me, the top side should be the thicker part with the base being this, because the ridges, the teeth are on this side, but there's also teeth on the inside here, which is how this whole mechanism works. So I'm not really certain if this is actually going to be a problem. I can't see it being a problem really, because they have to take the same amount of weight, I think, because there's weight resting on here, bottom side, there's weight resting on here, top side, flip it, and it's the same sort of deal. You're basically pushing the two apart from the teeth internally on the runners. So I can't see why this is a problem, but I will look into it further. At the moment, this is how I'm going to do it. So I've got the large movable gaping hole here, and the smaller one just underneath that, running on either of those, and then down the bottom here, I've just got to either gauge out. I do want to use this hole because this metal here is then welded onto this cross piece. So I think there's more strength in having it bolted to here than drilling on here, and then, because this is also braced the front here, so that's resting weight there on this mount piece, and then that's just tying it all together. So I'd like to use those, which means I do need to drill a hole within these on the thicker side. So that'll be the first thing I do. I'll try to bolt these up because I can fit through there. That will actually go in for me to do up those, which is good. And then on the top side, I'll basically use the vise to hold them in place, and then just use screws on the top side, or nuts on the top side of the base plate, and that'll all hold everything together really well. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to now line this up and then measure out a drill hole for this. So that's what I'll do next. Okay, so flipping this over now. And that's all lined up. So I could just leave this all assembled and then just drill holes straight through, I reckon. There we go. So line these up now, if they do line up. It's a little tight. It's supposed to be, oh man, much wider. It'll be fine. So, can I put a washer now? Yes, I can. Good, good. So I'll do one side, then I'll manhandle the other side. Get it over as far as I can, and then whack this bolt through it. Right. Here, it's ever so slightly off, annoyingly, but it's manageable. So these bars really need to be adjusted. Basically need to bend them in and then bend them out. But for now, should still work. Yeah, just a bit firm. Right, so now we've got that all sorted. we actually need to mount it back onto that, and then I've got to redo this now because those drill holes in this one are different. So let's figure out where these are going to rest now. Okay, so we're aiming for 344 across with an up and down of bang on 300 actually, so that makes it nice. Righto. Set that to the side. So, do some draft dots first. Pencil. So we want 344 across and then 300 top to bottom. Top to bottom is probably easier to work with because I can kind of work off these ribs. I'm keeping these back ones because they're not really going to be seen anyway. The fronts will be lopped off because they're not needed. So if I work from the back forward and then measure the difference from that, that's probably the easiest way to go. 342, 342, 300 and 300. That should be right. So I just got to check crosswise as well for argument's sake. Should have a nice cross at 454 and 4. Yeah, 455. So yeah, a mil out here or there. The whole thing is a mil out here or there. So where I plonk these white dots now is what I'm going to run with. Drill those preliminary holes, sink them through, and then fingers crossed, that's it. Then going to try and get the bolts through that, back and forward, and then still a little bit to do. Okay, so they're now done, and now I've got the fun task of mounting these to that. I'm kind of thinking I might remove them and then try to actually mount them to that first and then bolt this on. Probably the easiest way of doing it. So let's take this off again. So we'll get the bolts through the backlight. So this one here, line that up, wash your nut, okay, it's top side done. Now, do they line up? Yes they do, and yes it does. Okay. Righto. So that is essentially done now. The only thing really left to do now is to get this sorted, which I've got to modify this a bit more. I've already kind of bent one side to make it slightly straighter. The other one's still slightly off, so I need to bring that side in, straighten that side out, and then that should be operational. So I might do that first just to get the whole thing working. The problem is really it means I need to unbolt this bottom section, which I can do, so I might fix that first. And there we go. That's functional now, and that still clears underneath pretty well. So I probably do a slight adjustment, just tweak that a bit more, but for now that functions perfectly well. So let's bolt the seat back on. So that's all in there. Right, so now, yes, that's much better. Okay, so we'll put them in the second row. Bring this forward a bit. Ugh. So I'm going to weight in this now. Okay. So yeah, I could actually have it in the bottom. Maybe. I don't think I could. I don't know. Okay, so I'll go for there. That's pretty good. There we are. Right, so done. Excellent. So yeah, they are pulling in a little bit, but that's okay. They're secure. I mean, that is quite high up, but even the lowest setting in the factory seat and everything like that was really quite low. And I was trying to get used to being as low as possible just because I didn't know how high this would sit up. If I had this firmly mounted on the rails, without this, I'd have no scale of lift. And I've gained here about 1.5 inches, if not 1.75 inches of height, which would put me probably, I'd have to guess, at least in the mid-range from where that's seating. So that's pretty good. And at least that gives me a bit of under-seat storage. I can't get anything in the back. That basically locks me out from tilting the seats forwards to get into the rear. Passenger side will still have the standard seat, which I can then get into the rear, but I'm going to remove the rear seat altogether. So that back area will be like a modified storage cubby. Still haven't exactly figured out what I want to do there, but that back seat's going to actually disappear out of the equation completely. So it wasn't really that vital to have a manoeuvrable seat in the front at all. So that's the main thing. It's done. It's all set up. It's ready to roll. So, oh yeah. These are such comfy seats. I used to have a couple of these way back when in another car, and man, I just miss how snug they are. They're so comfy. And that little bit of foam at the back actually does help. I probably would like a little bit more just to push my back a bit further. So I'm right at the back there, but yeah, just a little bit more, probably just make it ideal, but it's not bad. It does actually help, because otherwise it'd be a bit more hunched like that. So a little bit more would be sitting really nice. But I suppose the further back that, then yeah, that'd kind of be a problem when I'm wearing a helmet. So that there, a bit more comfortable, a bit more natural, and yeah, it gives me plenty of room for a helmet. So yeah, that's pretty much bang on. Nice and snug, shoulders are perfect height. I love these seats, they're so cool, I love them. But that is pretty much it. That fits really nicely. It slides and everything like that. Down, isn't it? Yeah, so there we go. So I found the problem. The whole thing of me flipping those rails upside down, it still does work, but that arm now to allow the thing to slide backwards and forwards is in fact stationary. So it's now in my leg room at the bottom here. I can't really do much about it, but I'm short, so most of the time, I would think, I'm not going to know until I have it in the car, because I'm not really sure where that plate actually lies. But how far forward can I go? That's it. That's as far as I can go forward. Ugh. That plate's like right. It's kind of in the middle. Actually, I can see from here. So where my if I had a 5-point safety harness, I can see right at the bottom there. So that's pretty much where it would attach to. So yeah, okay, that's in line with that. Yeah, okay. I'm not going to know until I get it installed. But again, I couldn't really do it any other way because of those bolts. Just is what it is. Well, that's going to do it again today, guys. Thank you very much for joining me. As always, like, subscribe, comment below, etc. This has been Dat Build. Now, get on with your build. Until next time, cheers.